why web series will be the Nouvelle Vague in fiction. Wow. And first of all, I would like these three persons here that I'm going to put on the grill to present themselves and explain what they are doing in the web series area. Maybe you want to start, someone? Yeah.
My name is Kathleen Grace. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Newform Digital. Newform Digital is a digital-first content studio based in Los Angeles. We're a partnership between Discovery Communications, Ron Howard, and Brian Grazer. And we make a digital-first series with social media talent.
I'm Sam Toles, head of global content and distribution for Vimeo. Vimeo is a 10-year-old video sharing platform, second only to YouTube in its scale. We are the kind of creator-first platform, whereas I think YouTube is more cats on pianos. Vimeo is more bespoke. I like to say that we're the Bloomingdale's to YouTube's Walmart, and we. Or the Bergdorf, that's much better. I like Bergdorf's. And we've recently embarked on an audience-facing business, which I joined the company 2 years ago to lead the content strategy for, and now lead the entire group, which is focused primarily on a transactional model, meaning people making content that is of a premium nature for sale.
Hi, my name is Anne Santamaria. I'm a French producer. I'm working for... my company's name is Taronja, part of the Telfrance group, part of UN group as well. And I do produce primetime shows in fiction. I've done that for several years. And I opened my gate to web series, new digital young talents, and I created a young talent network called Telfrance Network as well. And this is how I find my talents, and we develop web series and find our, new narrative sounds and new narrative adventures.
So, I guess that we already answered one question. Yes, we have the creme de la creme of web series production here today. So this is going to be an interesting panel. So, let's go on. I want to ask you, do you really think that web series can be the Nouvelle Vague in fiction? And why do you think that? Who wants to start? I mean, come on, this is the question of the panel.
Is it working? Yeah. So if Nouvelle Vague is what happened in France in the 60s, is that Nouvelle Vague like that, where they went out of the studios to shoot in the streets on profile because you couldn't have proper mics on the street. That was a Nouvelle Vague, François Truffaut and all. So if this is, some of the definition you give, web series are produced in another way, on a quicker way, but on a very efficient, character-driven that you understand right away. You don't have the need and the space to develop, 3 or 4 scenes to say where they come from, what do they want. So this is a new approach, new narrative approach, a daring one. Sometimes guerrilla shooting, sometimes. And it could be the Nouvelle Vague in that sense. And I think it touches on drama, comedy, and also documentaries as well. The web is another... expression.
Kathleen?
I think definitely in terms of production, I agree with Anne on that. People are shooting with smaller, faster, better cameras, and definitely guerrilla shooting in many ways. But I also think how the audience is discovering the content and consuming it is very different than traditional television and film. A lot of it is really based on kind of your social feed and the influence that algorithmic programming has on your content. And I think no one in this room wants to talk about the Facebook feed or the kind of search and related algorithms that drive the world's biggest search engine, Google, and YouTube, the second largest search engine. But that changes how you produce and how you get your content marketed and discovered, is understanding how those algorithms work and how they affect the ability for your content to be surfaced. And so it changes the kind of stories you tell.
And I would add, I think the notion of web content and traditional content, those lines are blurring, and we are at the very, very beginning of something that is, I think, a completely different paradigm in the content business, kind of riffing a little bit on what Kathleen is saying. What I've seen and I've been in traditional media, now have moved into digital media. I think the most fascinating note that I've taken is this concept of traditionally content is produced here by a creator, and then it is given over, the IP is given over to a distribution outlet, whether that's a channel, whether that's a distributor, whether that's some middle party who then transmits it to the audience. In the new, what I think is most interesting about digital is actually those three worlds combined. The creator, the audience, and the platform ultimately are synergistic. And if you don't have touch points between audience and the creator, where they feel an actual relationship or a kinship with the person producing the content will not be authentic. It will not be successful. And that doesn't matter if it's in an ad context or a premium context. People wish to feel in this new social media world that we live in that they are connected personally with the people that are delivering them content. And since they have infinite choice, the closer that personal connection, the more successful that content will be.
Nowadays, when we're talking about web and all these new things happening on the web, we already think about young people. And I want to ask, do you think that web series are only for a young audience? Is it only for this kind of target, or do you think that web series can conquer a larger audience on all demographics?
What do you define as young?
Usually when we talk about web series, everybody says 15-25, which to me is young, I'm sorry.
I don't agree with that. I think, if you talk to anyone, I'm 36. I would say every morning I wake up and I spend the first 30 minutes of my day in my bed consuming online video. Through my Facebook feed, through my Twitter feed, through my email. I don't get out of bed. That's literally before I get up. I've usually watched at least 3 videos. And I don't think I'm alone in my demographic in that. I think a lot of people do that, and a lot of people are consuming a ton of video on their phones. Do older demographics have the kind of connection with YouTube talent or the social media talent that the younger demographics do? No. But my sister-in-law, she's 42, she's obsessed with Horace and Pete, which is Louis C.K.'s direct-to-fan web series. So absolutely, it's just about finding the passionate fans that you have personal connection with. It doesn't really matter what their age are, as long as they're technologically savvy.
Vimeo is an interesting platform. I think YouTube, while by the nature of their gigantic scale, they're fairly gen pop. I think their kind of white-hot core center is that, 13, 14-year-old female demographic. And I think that's what gets kind of thrown out into the ether, people trying to, be successful in that very, very center of the YouTube universe. For us, our platform actually skews a little bit older. I think the average age is somewhere around 33, and is more heavily male. And so the kind of web series that we're producing, if you look at High Maintenance, for example, is definitely decidedly not. I mean, it's a story about a marijuana dealer, who deals with kind of quirky New Yorkers and their eccentricities, and it's somewhat X-rated. That was our first original program. It's now gone on to HBO. Our comedy special and our next web series, The Outs, also targeted towards the LGBT community. Again, that kind of early 30s demographic. So I think it depends on the platform and the audience you're wishing to target. But the web is a place that touches every single person probably in the world at this point. And so to say that it's defined by a fairly narrow young niche is, I think, incorrect.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. There's a greater and greater appetite for fiction in the noughties. They call it the noughties. It was more like about entertainment, like Big Brother and all these types of things. Today, there's a greater and bigger appetite for fiction, and I think the big audience on for the broadcast traditional content are older than 50 years old. At least in France, and that's why they know about their series, they know about their meeting with a character, and they're more curious than ever, and they have the device now. And I think, of course, it started with YouTube and younger audience, but I think their appetite will our job is to make them curious about the new narratives and their taste for fiction in general, and it will grow in that sense.
Another word that is usually associated with web series is freedom. I mean, most of the people would say web series is great. You can do what you want. You can do that how you want. There's no censorship. You can speak about anything. What would you say about that? Do you think that really web series is this world where everything is possible?
I'm gonna jump in because we're gonna just keep doing this weird leg back, and I actually have a very specific point of view on this. The answer is depending. If you're making content for advertisers, there is no freedom. You're selling Tide soap or Crest toothpaste or Coca-Cola. You've got to conform to the norms that those brands are putting on you, and the brands are less progressive in many ways than they are in the linear world. For us, as a ad-free platform, we are 100% about total creative freedom. In fact, once when again using high maintenance as an example, when that team came in, we were joking around with them, and they asked this exact same question. They said, "Well, what does total freedom mean? What does creative freedom mean?" And we said, "Well, you can do anything you want." They said, "Really? Can we do full frontal male nudity?" And our CEO laughed and said, "Yes." And the creator Ben said, "Now we have to do that," and he did. Check it out; it's interesting. But seriously, you have to know where the funding is coming from, what that world and universe looks like, and when you're dealing with advertisers and ad supported platforms, that freedom can be limited by their needs.
The funny thing is, I actually think you probably have more freedom on Vimeo than you do on YouTube, and not just because YouTube is an advertising supported platform, but because YouTube is the Walmart of online video. And actually, thank you. You're going to have the customers, and they have an intense flagging system, and most of the world is more conservative than people who want to create content like this. So if high maintenance had been put up on YouTube, it would have been flagged obsessively by the community and taken down. And that's just, so there is lots of creative freedom. You don't have people giving you notes, although I give notes to people all the time. But you're also going to get a really active voice from your audience online, and they're going to tell you when they think you suck. Very loudly, with lots of feelings, over and over again. And you're going to have to learn how to ignore 60% of it and listen to the 40% that matters.
On my experience, I produced the first web series for France Télévisions Studio 4. It was also broadcasted in France 4. And the first web series for Arte, broadcasting now online for Arte Creative. So these web series were commissioned by a broadcasters platform, free online. From my experience, my limit was the budget. That was my limit. The creators were amazed by not having notes, trusting our story. We try to be very efficient. We try to have cliffhangers. So pretty much the limit, when you're clear about this is what I want to do, and when you deliver something that looks like what you wanted to do at the first place, then the limit is pretty much about your means and where you can do it and how fast.
So we are here at MIPTV talking about web series. So it kind of seems obvious that web series are related to television. Are web series only a kind of an extension of the television landscape, or can they have an impact really on television itself and television production? Because of this freedom and because of this new production way that you were talking previously?
Well, for these two platforms, they're public services in France, and they had the curiosity to go there and to explore what's on the web in general, and they thought that they had to be part of it. So their curiosity is strong. So the television is curious about how you make it and who's the viewers, and extend your views. Both of the channels have older audiences than the web, so they think to themselves, oh, maybe we could have a younger audience than the one we have. So yeah, they're very curious about that, but they're also aware that the market is more competitive than ever, and pure native platforms are coming up, like growing up like mushrooms. So they realize that they have to be part of the new gender, and this is how they have to be on the web, and they realize that it's a great challenge for them.
I think it's actually the opposite. Is television relevant in an era of web series and web content? You know, I watch broadcasters jump into the what they call we're going online, and what they do is they're like, we've got a reality show and we have this extra footage, and so you're going to tune in for the the stuff that wasn't good enough to put on television. And I think that's the mentality. It's like if television is up here, and then there's this thing called the web, and it's weird, and we don't understand it, but we have to. The people upstairs tell us that we have to do something in the web because they say people are using it, so we have to make this weird programming, and it doesn't feel natural and native. I'm going to tell a story which I love that illustrates an earlier point, and actually has to do with the show that we did with Newform, Oscar's Hotel. I was at VidCon, which is a conference for online creators in Anaheim, and we were talking to the creator PJ who made the show, and it's, you have to get those light bulb moments where you're like, oh wow, this is the future. One of the kids in the audience asked him, how do you do a major show with Jim Henson and Newform and this incredible production, and write it and make it, and still manage a YouTube channel? And his answer was very interesting. He said, look, when I was writing the show, I'd get stuck, and all of a sudden I'd go to my YouTube following and say, look, I'm having this issue with this part of my script. What do you guys think? And they brought feedback, and it was incorporated into the program. And then they were shooting. They would run into production challenges, and they would go back into the community and say, oh my God, I'm having so much fun with this, but we're having this weird challenge. What do you guys think? And the feedback would come back. And that real authentic nature of audience and creator living together is the future of entertainment, not just television, but entertainment in general. And people that are trying to put stuff on the web because they've been told to is not the same as this new paradigm, which I believe is emerging.
I have to echo what Sam says, which is TV still relevant with the ever decreasing ratings in traditional television, especially in key demographics, and the ever increasing consumption of video online? You can't ignore it. And then if you just anecdotally observe, if you're in the United States, what Jimmy Fallon is doing, he's fundamentally changing the format of late night television to serve the internet. They're changing TV because no one watches it live on air. I mean, it's just what they're doing. You're watching them change late night television to serve the internet. And you're watching other people do this. Ellen's doing it. Kimmel's doing it. And the talk show format is the one that's most easily you're able to do this. But you're going to see this cross into other genres as they recognize the fact that where everyone's watching everything is online and not necessarily on a linear television broadcast. It's just not what this demo wants to do.
Also, in television, we are always speaking about formats and really standardized format. Do you see standard format appearing in web series, and do you believe that web series will go to a standardized format that we will have in a few years? For example, there are 5 minutes web series and 7 minutes web series and 10 minutes web series, so precise that it could be in television formats, or will it stay gray area of the format?
I will use, we actually, I just think it's if you're talking about creator-first programming, one of the challenges that our creators, and they asked the same question you're asking me, they said, do I have to make it as an 11 or a 22 or a 46 or what, because, and we really believe that the form and length should fit the creative, not the other way around. The creative should not fit into a box that is unnaturally, manufactured to serve advertising. It really needs to tell a story, and I think that short form content is becoming more and more relevant. The examples that Kathleen was talking about with Kimmel and Saturday Night Live. I mean, it's about telling it's about telling a short-form story that can be consumed on a mobile device, consumed in a society that is ever increasingly pressured by time commitments and time constraints. You know, I think about myself running around in MIPCOM. I might have 10 minutes in between a meeting that I'd love to see a story to decompress. I don't have always 22 minutes or 46 minutes or beyond. So I think that the creative should not be forced into that format. And I think that more and more you're seeing the deconstruction of the 22 and the other television style formats.
Producing it, we had the freedom to have one episode, it's 10 minutes, the other one is 6, and then it's just what the story and what the key, drama thing happening in that episode. And if you catch the audience with, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and then people will stick to you another 4 minutes, it's efficient enough. So there's no, when producing it and writing it, like you said, creators are the bosses on that side. On the other side, you're mentioning that maybe the market will do, trying to do formats, because maybe some of them are going to go on another platform in another country, maybe they're going to go e-cinema, maybe, So it might happen, because they need to have standards, they need to travel with a format that is knowledgeable to international buyers and sellers. So it might happen, but creators are, I think they know how to handle the length of their own stories, and maybe they will meet, but today I think everybody's ready to have an unbalanced, format story.
Yeah, and I think you see in the kind of Netflix, Amazon, Hulu's of the world, they're not sticking to 22s. I think Master of None's shortest episode was 24 minutes and its longest was 30. They were really like swinging between those lengths. Same thing with Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones had variable length episodes if you were watching them. It was really just dependent on the story, which in a world where you binge view is fine. And actually, you can see the storytelling structures change in order to drive binge viewing as opposed to week tune-in. And I think that's just how it's going to evolve. And what we're seeing on our shows is, we have a series called The Fourth Door that launched on Verizon's Go 90. We had some episodes that were 7 minutes, some episodes that were 11 minutes, but across all of them, we were seeing a 9 to 10 minute consumption rate. So 90% of the content was being consumed and this is on a mobile platform. So while short form's doing well on mobile platforms, people are increasingly watching longer things on mobile phones. I mean, the thing I say now is, this is not the second screen, it's the only screen. It's where everyone's consuming everything. My friend's dad watches all of his Netflix shows on his phone because his wife is really into tennis and, takes over the whole TV and he never gets to use the TV. So that you're just going to see people are going to just consume the length they want to consume. And it's really just about, is the pacing right? Can you keep their attention? Can you make them want to click on more and consume another video? And the easiest way to do that is actually to have short form content.
We still have like 6 minutes with this panel. We can maybe take 1 or 2 questions at the end from the audience. But yesterday I promised Sam a tricky question. You remember? And you were asking for it?
I want it. Here we go.
So I have it. I mean, we obviously are enthusiastic about web series. I know I am. So I have to ask this question. What could go wrong? I mean, do web series have like a highway to success, or are there obstacles on the road?
Look, I think that the biggest challenge is monetization. Like, how is this going to be monetized? The ad monetization and the nature of pre-roll is, I think, rapidly coming to an end. We talked about length and format. The reason that shows are 22 minutes long is because they were run linearly, and linear channels had to program slots and advertising. That has been torn away. We're still trying to serve pre-roll advertising in a digital context, and it becomes less and less effective in the same way that advertising itself in television is becoming less and less effective. So brands are going to have to evolve and figure out new ways to get their messages across and how they're going to integrate into programming, because ultimately, ad revenue has built this entire business over, a span of 50 years, and it's not showing the same kind of traction that it has historically, and advertisers are frustrated, and the companies that hire them are frustrated. Transactional is an interesting model, subscription is an interesting model, but how much content, how many channels, how much is the consumer wallet going to ultimately be able to bear? All of those are being answered and discovered, and so when you have producers such as the wonderful people on either side of me making content, they're doing it in a leap of faith. They've got to figure out how to generate income to continue making their businesses work and to grow and to ultimately yield return to the people investing in them. And that is not an easy thing, and I applaud anyone who's jumped into this world and is creating content for the digital medium, because A, the margins are tight, the content has to be produced at ridiculously low budgets, and yet still, I look at a show like Oscars or High Maintenance or The Outs, which we just launched, and the quality is equal to or better than what you find on television. And more importantly, it's more interesting, it's more dynamic, and it will be the future. We just have to figure out how to make a lot more money with it.
Similar answer. I think the biggest challenge we have is we don't know how to define a hit yet. What's a hit when the world's biggest YouTuber has 32 million subscribers and none of you know who he is? And every 13-year-old boy is obsessed with him. And so it's really hard to define a hit when the audiences are so fragmented. And once we define a hit, the monetization will get much easier. But it's really, you can be incredibly popular on Vimeo, you can be incredibly popular on these digital platforms and still feel like no one knows who your show is, even though you are creatively successful, in some cases financially successful, you still don't feel like you have a hit. And I think it's going to get tougher and tougher. I think there are lots of great shows on Netflix that people don't watch. I love Peaky Blinders. Anyone else love Peaky Blinders? Yes. Love that show. But most Americans look at me and go, huh? Like they literally don't understand the words that are coming in my mouth when I say Peaky Blinders. But it's a great show. Mad props to that show.
Oh, what could go wrong? Maybe, on my perspective in the French market, maybe there's the free online content that is there, and of course, that is, we talk about monetization, because of course you need to have I think it's called ROI, return on investment. So that's a type, that's a very weird word, hard for me to pronounce in English. And I think, of course, that's going to be a world where you have to be ROI, which in French means king, roi. Very weird. And then on the other side, maybe I don't want a big wall between this free online, content and the SVOD, premium, elite, like the pay TV type of, content. So for the creators, it would be hard to separate them because they all have something to say, and of course, their job today is to find their audience, and this is my job as a producer to go with them and to drive them to the audience. So I hope it will never happen. Of course, it won't.
So everything is cool. We now have only 1 minute. Do you have something to add, or do we take a question? Who has a good question?
No pressure. I was really interested in what you said about the Facebook algorithms and the YouTube algorithms, and how do you see that going? I mean, does everyone end up making a certain kind of show, then charging to make something different because the algorithms have changed, or do you solve it through advertising and spending your way to the top of the newsfeed, or how do you see that kind of problem being grappled with by production companies?
Well, I think the great thing about these technology platforms that you can self-distribute on is that they give you an immense amount of data on your performance. So, and they're free to distribute. No one's stopping you. So you can experiment and find the right format. Facebook has been very aggressively de-promoting YouTube videos in the feed. So you see now every YouTuber uploading natively to Facebook and increasing their views. They also bias towards videos that work in silent mode and with text. And so you see a lot of people like A+J, which is Al Jazeera's youth brand, is destroying Facebook right now. They're doing a really great job strategically in how they create their content to succeed in that algorithm. And you're going to see producers always, they're like cockroaches. We like making new things and figuring out how to break the system and the software engineers are going to pivot the algorithm, and then there's going to be smart ad buying. Facebook ads are quite effective, and you can use them to drive eyeballs to your content. And we do so with our content off of Facebook, and see how well it does. And same thing with YouTube to review ads.
So, okay, now we definitely ended the time. My countdown is at 0. This is how good a moderator I am. But I guess that we have no more time here. But of course, you can meet these people around after the panel and around here at MIPTV if you have more questions or information to ask to them. Thank you very much for attending this panel.